Warning: the following contains explicit language and subject matter that may not be suitable for younger listeners, church folk, and people who enjoy kale smoothies.
Whatever could be possible, I would like that.
I would like 800 of those dollars.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so let me do my little intro here real quick so we can officially start the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to A Pod Amongst Men. I'm your host, Steve B., and this is Coffee Break Conversations for the 21st Century. I am joined by returning guest, A Pod Amongst Men alumni, Tony D.
Hype. I love it.
Welcome back, sir.
Fucking glad to be back.
I'm trying to think if you were the first returning two-time guest in the studio.
Ooh.
No, I think Drew's got you on that one.
I feel like he has to.
Drew's got you. Cause he was here twice. He got a solo episode.
Ooh. I didn't catch that one. I gotta check that out.
We're just kind of rambling. Drew is cool because he told me, he's like, listen, if you ever have like an issue where somebody like backs out at the last minute, just give me a call. I'll come talk to you. It's like, okay. And then sure enough, that happened. So,
absolutely.
As you know already, Tony,
Yeah.
we're here to talk about your story. You have definitely one of the way more interesting stories of anybody that I know, as far as life stories. Like you're right up there with Joey Diaz. And I say that, not that I know Joey Diaz personally, but I shook his hand one time, so that's close enough. So, do you want to give a little brief background about where you're from? I mean, we already know who you are,
True.
Former lead singer of An Arms Like These, former lead singer of The Air I Breathe.
Yep.
Former lead singer of quite a few bands.
I've put a lot of work in over the years.
You sang a lot of leads in your day.
Yeah. Absolutely. In New Jersey, definitely. So before music, little Tony, I was born JFK Hospital, Edison, New Jersey, and pretty much where this story is going to go is I grew up in the foster care system, group homes, living in a car.
And that was when I met you.
Yeah, that's when you guys met me. Just the whole struggle, the whole what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know.
It's a journey, man.
It's a journey.
That's a hell of a journey.
A journey that, sometimes people get the gist of what I've been through, just like, oh yeah, I don't have parents, this and that, but I'm stoked about it, and I work really hard, and here I am, self-made, lone wolf kind of guy,
I always thought of myself as kind of a one-man wolf pack. So, all right, so let's start at the beginning. You were born, your mom and dad, so what happened?
Okay, so growing up, I used to tell people I was a test tube baby. It's not true, though. I wasn't a test tube baby. I did have a couple years I lived with my real biological parents. I don't really remember too much about it. They had a crazy drug problem. We lived out in East Orange. They had a crazy drug problem. I'm pretty sure Dyfus was always coming out. My parents were always MIA. I was always at a friend's house or something like that. And how my separation from them starts is this I won't forget because it's such a landmark. But my journey starts with Christmas Eve. I'm like 4 years old. It's around there, 4 or 5 years old. That's when, I think my mom was always chasing my dad back when I was a kid because he was always running out. They were always doing drugs, but whatever. But they'd always get in fights and he'd run away. Oh, side note, they had me, I'm pretty sure, in their young 20s.
Okay.
So.
And you were born in what? 80 what?
88.
88. All right.
88. Yeah. So they had me. Well, no, so Christmas Eve.
You could jump around if you need to.
Yeah. I'm gonna try not to be too sporadic so people can
follow the thread.
Follow this.
I got you.
So starting Christmas Eve, I'm at a friend's house because once again my parents are MIA, and the people that I was staying with, the friend's parents, they totally were like, "This is the last straw," kind of thing. We're getting Dyfus here, and I remember Dyfus came and took me from their house Christmas Eve and immediately placed me into foster care on Christmas Eve. And my first family was a Spanish family that didn't speak English
At all.
At all.
Wow.
And they had tons of foster kids. So that's where it starts. It starts with me going to a place where they specialize, I guess, in getting like last minute emergency foster kids. The house was this old school church home. Looks like a house, but they said it was a church home back in the day. It was insanely haunted. Curtains going up and down. Doll. There was this one room no one used where I swear every time I walked past it, the doll would like be in a different place.
Okay, I gotta go backwards. What you said? A church home?
Yeah, I remember that's what it was being called. It was a church home. I'm pretty sure. So if you worked at the church, you lived here back in the day.
What is that called? Like where the priest, the house the priest lives? Is that what a rectory or something like that? I don't know. I was never a good Christian. But
same.
Yeah.
But one of the cool parts of being my life story is that I was part of a lot of families with lots of different beliefs. So that means each family I got to.
So, okay, they took you away from your parents. Do you know what kind of drugs they were into? I mean, I guess it really doesn't make a difference.
I think like heroin and stuff like that. I vaguely remember there being spoons and stuff laying around. I'm pretty sure it's like a needle thing.
Yeah, if the
or
spoons
crack, I don't know really. So when I grew up in like high school and stuff, while everyone's like experimenting, I was so freaking against drugs at that time. Like, I mean, don't do drugs still, but I'm not like crazy against it. But I just was so against it. I was like the straight edge kid. Besides, I started drinking eventually, but I was like very like this messed my life off.
Yeah.
It's like messed my whole life up, and I'm not about it, kind of thing. But yeah,
I know. Yeah, I know the type. All right, so I took you with the first one they put you in was with a Hispanic family.
Yeah, pretty sure they were the Lopez's.
Do you remember like where they were from? What kind of Hispanic?
No, I think there was probably like Elizabeth or Linden area.
I mean, like what nationality? Like what country originally?
There's no, bro. My early days, it's gonna be
very vague.
And what I remember that they had lots of foster kids. They didn't speak English. Pretty much, I could just talk to one of the foster kids, and that was how we'd all communicate. I got to eat some really great food and soups and stuff like that.
That's good.
And church was crazy because I didn't know what they were saying. That's the first experience of church I had. But yeah, I don't know what Spanish that they were.
I know that's like it's an insane thing to ask your 4-year-old memory.
Yeah, 4 or 5, something like that. And so
you remember their license plate numbers?
Yeah.
All right, so you're there.
I'm there. The thing about being in foster care, you're only allowed to be a foster kid for a year to 2 years, or at least in New Jersey, DIFUS. You're only allowed to be living in someone's house unless you're going to get adopted a year to 2 years. So pretty much I would live there for a year to 2 years, and then I'd bounce to another foster family, and then I bounced to other foster families. I remember I lived with pretty much every ethnicity.
Well, let's take it step by step.
Okay.
Let's get into the meat here. So where did you go next?
So next there was an in-between stage, in between houses, where every so often you get placed in like a little group home kind of thing, and then you get placed into another family. Mm-hmm. After that family, I probably lived there for maybe 2 years because it was the first one while they're figuring it out. So since I also have to say, since I was not getting adopted, I wasn't allowed to get adopted at this point. They were still pushing for my family to sometime get clean.
Gotcha. So their parents still didn't technically lose all their rights yet.
Correct.
Okay.
Rights were not terminated at this time.
Okay.
I'm just beginning to do this. I think there was supposed to be some visitation back then, but what would happen is that they would always do drugs, and then like a grandma or something would appear, and they weren't allowed to see me, and it was just getting very crazy, like traumatic. But
like during all this, like within the first year or two, do you remember like where you were mentally during all this? Like what was going through your head, if you remember?
Well, in the beginning, when you first get taken away from your parents at such a young age like that, you're definitely like, everybody's the bad person here. My parents are got to come save me. And that's something that you kind of feel for many years,
Mm-hmm.
But at that time, especially, I'm feeling like, their rights aren't terminated. Something's gonna happen eventually where I get to go home, and yeah, so that's pretty much where I'm at. There's definitely, I'm sure, some times where I've acted out, was very upset, probably threw some tantrums at that age. Obviously, no, I start going to other families every couple of years. None that the next two or whatever, they don't stand out as much, just normal families. But I do know in that time period of those first three, I'm getting heavily medicated. I'm getting all these social
Medicated.
Yeah, social like therapists, like things like these meetings I got to go to at such a young age, and they think like, oh, why is this kid that's been ripped out of his family's arms on Christmas Eve at such a young age? Why is he depressed? And they're putting me on like Prozac and stuff.
Well, it's like, so we took this kid away from his parents because they were doing drugs. So what should we do with the kid? Drugs.
Lots, yes.
Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So I point that out because for many years of me in foster care, they just keep adding on different prescription pills until eventually later in life, I finally meet some doctor that's like, what the heck is wrong with everybody? Get this kid off of everything.
Yeah, there's always like, eventually somewhere along the line, there's the one rational doctor who's like, what are you fucking people doing to this kid?
Yeah, like, of course he was sad,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's to be expected.
Yeah, totally.
All right, so so we're like, let's say we're like 3 or 4 years out now. How many families were there like along? I mean, I'm not gonna make you go through every single one, but
yeah, I'm gonna go through some like landmark ones.
Yeah,
and then we're gonna skip some others because some only last a year, some last 2 years, and some stand out more than others. So the next one I really remember, after the Lopez's and then the two like temporary homes that weren't as long, is the Rices. The Rices, they were African-American family. They were awesome. They had a younger son, Jared. We got along great. I remember he had a PlayStation. We played that all the time. Mm-hmm. I was like so about that. What things I remember from that are that that I lived in Rahway, New Jersey. At this point, you're always going into like different after school programs. I'm pretty sure DIFUS and Catholic Charities in New Jersey, they all pay for that stuff, and there's definitely always some therapeutic side to it, and the one thing that I did have in that when I lived in Rahway was I lived in a school where I went to a school where I was the only white kid, and then I went to an after-school program where I was the only white kid, and there was a little bit of a reverse racism thing. Yeah, only time in my life was that time when, so like the after-school programs, they were kind of rude, and then when I'd go home, I tried to tell my foster parents about it, and they just, they're gonna believe the adults, and so eventually I'm getting like
picked on, and
this kid's
singled
out, picked on, not included in like the dodgeball games and all that stuff. But also they're coming home and they're telling my parents that I'm bad, while I'm also not being able to be included with things. So that leads to my next foster family. So that's
why were they telling the foster parents you were bad?
I don't know why they picked on me so much, and I originally I didn't think it was because that I was white, but then we finally got 2 other kids that came into the thing that were white, and they would make us fight each other, and they threw one of the white kids into the garbage can, and then I was like, oh, so there might be something here.
So it's the other kids made you guys do that, or
no, the staff?
Holy shit!
Staff. Yeah. So, so that was just a thing. I mean,
yeah, it was just a thing. Yeah,
I'm not trying to go too deep into it, but I just want to say it's something that made me go to the next foster family, mm-hmm. that, like I had great times with living with the family, and especially I remember my foster brother Jared, still friends with him on the internet. But,
shout out to Jared.
Yeah. But the one thing was, it was just, I was always told that I was like this kid that was acting up. I'm sure there were times I was, but not what they were making it seem. And also parents' rights still not terminated at this point.
So
another family where even if they wanted to keep me, couldn't keep me, and they hear I might be bad at after school programs. And so on to the next one. The next one is the family, the Spychowskis. They were Hungarian, I'm pretty sure.
So you're like going all over the friggin' spectrum of like types of. You had a diverse upbringing.
Yeah. So they were a cool family. They were in Old Bridge, New Jersey. To anyone out of state listening to this, they're just going to hear like random towns that I'm listing. But
I don't know where that is.
During this, I'm probably now fast forward to the age of maybe 10. I think maybe 9.
Okay.
When I joined the Spychowskis. The Spychowskis, yeah. So with them and why they stick out to me, they were the most loving out of all my foster families.
Okay.
They're like the 4th one, and I'm right 5th one in or something like that. But one of the longer ones, loving family. They did it. So a lot. Oh, so it goes. I have to say this. A lot of foster families I noticed in this journey, they're all getting paychecks and stuff like that. So a lot of them.
There's a financial incentive.
And when you're younger, the kid gets a paycheck too, but they just get that paycheck for you, and it's for clothes and food and stuff like that. So they're getting double the paycheck. But one thing with Spychowskis is they couldn't conceive kids, and they always wanted kids. And when I got put into their life, they were just super excited, and they held on to the point where my family... No, they held on to the point where, my parents' rights were finally terminated. My parents still not passing any drug tests, not showing up, or they show up and they say, we're not clean, so I don't even know why they would even show up and do that, but there's records of that. So Spychowskis are the first ones to get the chance to possibly in the future start working on adopting me. At this point in my life, though, like I said, 9 or 10, they were definitely the most loving family, but I don't know how I felt about being adopted. I think at that age, having my last name change was weird to me. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that they were probably like, we don't need to change your last name and stuff, but that was one of the things I remembered that crossed my mind. But I know we started moving forward with like, this is going to be a thing. I'm going to live here longer, and we're going to work on a future of getting adopted.
Now, how did you feel about the Spychowskis? Like,
they were great. They were very loving. I came from the Rices after that, so just being in this new school district was also just better too. Mm-hmm. Also, and they just, they like the Christmases and everything like that were more magical. I remember the father, he dressed up like Santa Claus and purposely walked up the steps to my room and tried to get caught on video camera and silly things like that,
Were they like Hungarian?
No, Americanized. I think one of the parents were or something like that. I know they had a wrestler in their family back in the day, they were telling me, that was called the Hungarian Blimp. That was in there. That's why Hungarian sticks out to me. They were definitely more than Hungarian.
But they didn't have like accents or anything.
Nah, definitely not.
Young man, did you see the clothes coming upstairs?
No.
This motherfucker. I'm sorry.
Just no. I just remember they were great. There was I had a brother in this family also. And he was younger than me, and the reason I'm mentioning him is he also went through the same stuff that I went through, and in this living, how do I word it? He was a little more messed up than me, and he had this issue where he would defecate himself all the time and hide it, and that made my family, the Spychowskis, very frustrated, because DIFUS will do this thing where, so here's some more dirt, where they don't tell you the full story about the kids that they're putting into your home. They like black things out and just say, all right, this kid's ready to be put in your home, kind of thing.
What's the logic behind that?
Their logic is get kids placed in homes. So that part I understand, but as I grew up in life, I saw and I became friends with people that worked in diapers and stuff like that, I learned that there were like these gimmicks where like they would like black out parts because diapers
like
keeps track of everything.
Yes, all these redacted files and
Yeah,
stuff.
redacted. Even my birth certificate that I got had things blacked out on it. I'm like, what the hell is this thing worth for me? You know, like what the hell? But
we delivered to CIA headquarters in
Yeah.
Langley.
So the kid had more problems than they thought. And I was in a family. Was I in the Rices with him? Actually, I don't think I was in the Rices with him, but I think I was in the Lopez's with him. So they brought us back together.
Oh, the same kid.
Yeah. Remember, I told you there was a lot of kids in the Lopez's.
What's a lot?
They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think like 6 or 7.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
And they had a daughter of their own who had a baby. So that's a lot. But yeah, so we're living together in this family. This family is the most loving. They want to adopt. They now have a chance to adopt.
Now, hang on.
They're struggling.
Did you and this kid, like, you guys remembered each other? Like,
Definitely.
yeah.
Definitely. Remembered each other. It was cool to have a brother and stuff like that. But like I said, he was going to the bathroom on himself, hiding, and blah, blah, blah. Dyfus isn't helping the Spychowskis. So what ends up happening is the Spychowskis, they call Dyfus. They're like, please, you got to help us. You're not helping us. If you don't help us, I don't know what we're going to do. That sentence right there, trigger point, remember, memory, everything. From the second that they said that sentence, we were both pulled out of their family while we were in school. They called while we were in school. So we're pulled out and immediately placed to another foster family.
That's like a red flag. That word.
Definitely. And so this next foster family, we knew them because when you're in foster care, here's another thing to learn. When you're in foster care, you're not allowed to leave the state ever. If the family that you live with is going on vacation, you go to a thing called respite. So, once upon a time, the Spychowskis were going on a family vacation and learned that we were not allowed to go, and we had to go on respite. And we didn't go to the same family. The other kids went somewhere else. I went to this one place, but the one family I went to, I eventually lived with them. So I knew them from sleeping over there one weekend or something like that. But that's where the next family was. I think in Monroe Township. At this point, I'm like 11, 12.
So we're really not that far along.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. There's so much to the story that I'm trying to like.
No, I know. I mean, it's a lot to remember, but it's a lot to go through.
The thing is, also, there's so. I notice when I talk to friends that people can remember their past a little bit better than I can because, like, they can remember like kindergarten and stuff like that, and they can because like you grew up kind of in the same town or only 2 different towns or something like that, and you just remember. I was just constantly moving, so only big things stick out to me.
Yeah, it was like a whirlwind all the time.
So there's like these little landmarks that I remember. So that's why I'll be like, all right, now this is a thing and that's a thing. So what do I remember? I remember with the Osowskis now. Number one thing I remember, my foster brother in the Osowskis was part of. He wrote Nickelodeon cartoons. The awesomest thing ever. SpongeBob, Ren and Stimpy.
Like he grew up to write them, or he
was a character in them all.
He was a character.
Yeah, he's a character. He like you draw yourself and you voice them. That.
Really?
Yeah, so awesome. And also my favorite out of them all, Rocco's Modern Life. He was that. So those 3.
I'm all right. I don't think I'm really understanding this. He was your foster brother. He was older?
Yeah, way older.
Oh.
Like he was the biological son of the Osowskis.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay. So he was an illustrator and a voice actor?
Yeah, so awesome.
Wow, that is awesome.
I think I only got to meet him once, though. He lived out in California, but he always called in, and he always would do the fake voices of whatever cartoon I was digging at the time and stuff like that. Yeah. There was a lot of growing up there was cool. Lots of farmland. Pretty much I'm like I said, I'm now like 12 years old. At this point, I just got ripped from the Spychowskis. They were the only ones that even stood a chance of being able to adopt me, because now I'm just fucking pissed off. Oh, I don't know if I'm saying that. I'm just mad.
Well, you can say whatever you want.
Okay, so
I've been
I'm
cursing
just,
already, dude.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Shit, piss, fuck,
Okay,
cocksucker.
Cool. So I'm getting to teenage. I'm pissed. I went from thinking one day parents are going to save me, which is toxic, and which I saw so much in my life. Even as I get older, I see some kids that never let go in the foster scene, in the group home scene, that never let go of that thing that one day, like, your parents are like these rich, like, people that are going to come out of nowhere and save you and take you out of this.
Yeah.
It's at age 12 where that just becomes not a thing anymore for me, and I'm just like, fuck everything, fuck you, and I don't think I think I last maybe 1 year in that family. They were nice. I wasn't mean to them. I was just acting out in school and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So what was it like in school? Like, when you say acting out, like, was this like a regular thing, or was it?
When you're younger and you're the new kid, this is important to say too, that I noticed in my life, when you're younger and you're the new kid, you get picked on a ton. As I get older, 8th grade on, and you're the new kid, you're awesome.
Yeah, there's like an air of mystery around you.
Yeah, I become cool eventually, but until then, I was always picked on. I was always beat up and jumped, and it started out when I was growing up in hoods, but then now I'm getting towards the farmlands, and I'm still getting picked on, and I'm not getting it. But there, it was for something else. Oh, you don't have parents, kind of thing, you know.
Gotcha. Kids are fucking mean.
They're
man.
so mean, and they there's just kids. I mean, maybe they were going through things at their at-home life.
You know what it is? I think it's just like because I think most of us at some point along the way growing up, we were mean to someone. Like, I think there's very few people that are just like legitimately all the way nice through and through. Like, everybody does something fucked up once in a while, but I think we don't understand as kids like how that feels. Like, we know that if it happens to us, it sucks, but we don't put those two things together where it's like, oh, I'm doing this shitty thing that I hate to another person and making them feel that way. It's like we never make that connection.
That just triggered a story for me. So I had one foster family where they had a daughter, and the daughter, when the foster parents weren't around, would have me, for no reason, hold stacks of books for like long periods of time for no reason. So, like, you just pick on young kids for no reason. I guess so obviously she was going through something in her life, and she needed that power to take it out on me. But
how much was she? A lot older?
She was like 18, and I was like 7 probably.
You know what it is? I there's got to be. I'm completely talking out of my ass right now, so take this with a grain of salt. But there's got to be some kind of resentment for, like, if you're the biological child of a family and they take in a foster kid. There's got to be some kind of resentment or some kind of weird feeling there. Like, especially when it's like a big age gap. Like, if you're close in age, then it's like, oh, great, I have a new friend. Like, the guy that I had on my podcast 2 weeks ago, he has a couple foster kids, and his kids get along great with them because they're all close in age. Mm-hmm. But when it's something like this, like a big 7 to 18, like, that's a big gap, especially in those like young formative years.
I think that's a good point.
There's got to be something. I mean, and like I said, I don't know, but I'm just assuming here.
I was always picked on by the older ones, and the ones that I was closer in age with, I was cool with. So
there you have it.
Yeah.
All right. We don't need to fact check anything.
It could be true. It could be true. So now, Osowski's. I'm out there. I'm wilding out in school. I get into a fight with security guard. That's how much I'm wilding out.
Okay.
They're like, this kid, he's too much. Also, I'm on all these pills that got me, I didn't get taken off the pills yet.
You were still on the meds.
Still on the meds. 2 families deep of only even if I was to be able to allowed to be adopted, which now there's no chance I even want that. And I'm wilding out, and
your
so
whole
they
mentality
immediately
is just like, fuck everything at this point.
And at that point, they're like, this kid he's too old now to go into like any more foster families, I mean, obviously, I was a kid, so the fight with the security guard wasn't anything too crazy. But, still, like, if a security guard says, you shouldn't do this, like, because like a glorified hall monitor, he says you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't be like, never mind, catch me, fat guy, Like, you shouldn't do that, So
you're not giving him the old right there, Fred,
yeah.
Set him up with a jab, hit him with the uppercut.
I mean, he definitely tried to put me in, like, a hold, and then they got a little aggressive. But I'm just saying, like, I didn't beat the crap out of the guy. I did, like,
it wasn't a fair fight.
Yeah. But, so now, 12 years old, turning 13, I'm putting in group homes now. And that's the plan indefinitely. You're too old at this point for any foster family to be able to sneak you in as one of their own. There's definitely a lack of foster parents out there that are interested in having a freaking teenage boy coming into their house.
Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this movie. This is just the movie Instant Family with Mark Wahlberg. Have you heard of it? It's basically a couple. They want to adopt, and they end up, instead of just adopting one kid, they adopt 3 kids that are all siblings. And part of like the story of how they do it, when they're like getting to meet some of the kids, there's like they look over and there's all these like teenage kids sitting over there, and one of the people says, they're teenagers. Most people aren't really interested in that because at that point they're a little more grown up, a little more rebellious and rambunctious or whatever. But that's a legit thing. Like that, I knew right there. Like, I can believe that.
It's 100% true. I think it was a big issue in DYFS, and eventually I age out, and I think DYFS even tried to go further and try to put out encouragements for people to take in older.
So they were trying to like entice people.
Yeah. But anyway, so I go into group homes. Group homes are intense, man. They're very like
this. Now, this was a question that I already had written up before.
Okay.
Like, describe what a group home is like for those of us that are not familiar.
So I pretty much have fast forward to the group homes because that's when most, they were the most crazy, and that's where I get the most like remember from, because the rest you just live there and you only could be there for a year and 2 years, and you go to the next one. But group homes are usually, you got counselors there. There's definitely going to be some therapists there, but you have at least 12 other boys there living with you. At least. There's group homes where there's hundreds of boys that live together, and
it's all like single sex. It's not unisex. Or co-ed.
There's actually one in Bridgewater that is both sex, and they just have one wing and another wing.
Okay.
I wasn't part of any of the mixed wing ones, but there are mixed wing ones. Mixed gender ones, I should say.
Co-ed.
Co-ed, there we go, co-ed.
I don't know, it's they say in college, right?
Yeah, co-ed, yes. Which seems crazy, but... Because there's got to... I mean, the way that staff can, like, yoke you up, like, grab you when you're a dude and you're acting out, and like how aggressively they're allowed to put you in this thing called the crisis hold and slam you to the ground when you're acting out. Like, to think that they could even be able to do that to like the girls, that's wild. But and then the whole like sneaking around, because usually group homes are understaffed at nighttime, like severely understaffed. So there would definitely be some things going on with that. But so the group homes often are very, what's the word for when something's very like military?
Very regimented.
Yeah. Everything's got like a schedule. Even like your food's got a schedule every day. They're meal planned out by someone you never meet that's got your meal planned. Oh, also, I'm 12 years old. At this point, I'm now cooking for 13 people.
You were cooking?
Yeah. You have to do everything. You have to, on the weekends, we have this thing called field day chores. You have to clean everything, even if it's clean. So you empty out cabinets. You're scrubbing walls. Some of the bathrooms in the group homes, I've been to group homes where there's individual bathrooms. I've been to group homes where there are multiple stalls in the bathroom. So you're scrubbing all that. And it, like I said, if the kitchen had clean dishes, you're emptying out the cabinets and cleaning all that. It takes all day, and that's very military.
Oh, very much. But I gotta imagine that there's a logic behind that, because if you hear people that go through basic training in the military, the whole concept is to almost break you down,
Definitely,
and rebuild you back up and teach you discipline and how to be organized and follow a schedule and all this stuff. And it sounds similar. Cleaning things that are already clean. That's
absolutely
that reeks of the military.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's got to be important, especially for kids that are in a group home where you don't have that steady family. What's the word I'm looking for? That the family structure, so to speak. So they're trying to give you some form of discipline and a routine.
And also in these group homes, I was usually the minority of in the fact that I was there and I had no parents. You don't get put in a group home because you don't have parents. You get put in a group home because it's like your last chance before going to jail, usually, is what was going on in these group homes. They were like a halfway house kind of thing. If like there would be bad kids and it's like, hey man, here's a group home, or next time you're a juvenile, but soon you're going to be looking at going to jail. I would often be in group homes with gang members, and people that robbed places or did like little crimes that they couldn't be prosecuted against like an adult at the time. But what would end up happening is they never lived there for more than like a year or so, and they would have visits from their parents. Those were all things that while that's all happening, I didn't get that. And some of them, towards the end of their stay there, they get to start getting their weekends to start getting used to going back home, But
that's weird. Like, these kids, they have parents and they're still in the group home.
Yeah,
like, how does that work?
I said, that's why I wanted to say it. Like, they have parents, and this is more of you're either got caught doing lots of drugs, or you got caught doing some criminal activity or gangs or something like that, and I don't know, and it's maybe a scared straight kind of thing. I don't know. It's something to discipline them. That part wasn't my life. I just got to experience it with them. Like when I was in high school, and when I went to high school, I went to a very wealthy high school, Ridge High School.
You were Baskin Ridge.
Yeah. So I started out in Bridgewater, and actually the group home in Bridgewater got kicked out by the township. The township was like, you know what? We're over all these hoodlums here. It's not happening anymore. Get the hell out of here. Yep. The group home had been there for many years before I got there. I got there.
Fucked up.
Yeah, totally. So they actually they kicked our group home out and sent us to Baskin Ridge. And in Baskin Ridge, there's this group home campus. There's this campus there called Bonnie Bray. Hundreds and hundreds of kids, acres, everything. And they had like extra buildings where my group home, which is a smaller one, they kept a smaller amount of kids because, like I said, they just, rented it out, and we had to be part of that. Lots of the kids that lived in my group home weren't even allowed to go to public school. They now had to go to Bonnie Bray, which is for the bad kids, and that couldn't go to normal school. I was one of the few where I was scared. I was like, man, I'm going to have to, like, what did I do? Now I can't even go to normal school. I'm not going to be able to hang out with girls and stuff like that. And I'm a teenager now. Like, those are the things I was thinking about.
Of course.
But,
who's not?
Like, this is terrible. And luckily, I was one of the few that got to go to normal school.
This is sausage fest.
Yeah.
It's funny because you mentioned Baskin Ridge. I think I've told you this. There was a kid who was he wasn't my apprentice. I was still an apprentice at the time, but he ended up working with me, and he was like, "Oh, I'm from Baskin Ridge." I'm like, "Yeah, I think my friend went there. He's the singer in my band. This guy Tony." "Oh, I know Tony." It was this redheaded guy named Timmy.
Really?
I forget the hell his last name was, but he had like almost like a red fro, and he was like
he became an electrician.
Well, he got it. I don't know if he's still in the union. I mean, no offense if
dude
Tim
was
is watching
a stoner.
He was burnt.
Okay, then we know.
Crisp.
I know who you're talking about. Dude he was blowing glass last time I saw him in high school. He was like just to be like, I'm going to do that. I thought he moved to Colorado or something.
I don't know,
he
man.
He was on that level.
But he was like, he was a bit of a space cadet.
Yeah.
But he had that deep, stony voice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. It's like, I know Tony. Tony went to my high school.
Yeah, I had some classes with him, which were the bad boy classes.
I heard a rumor about him, and I don't know if it's true. I'm going to tell it anyway because I feel pretty confident he's not watching this.
Yeah.
But
He's never even said hi to me during my whole after high school ever. So that's amazing.
oh, there you go. Then I don't feel bad. But anyway, so in my union, they started doing drug testing. And I was about like a second, third-year apprentice at the time. So we would have school like one day a week. We would, instead of going to work, we'd go to school at the training academy. So what they said, oh, we're going to start drug testing soon, so you guys should be prepared. We're like, oh, yeah, okay. And the last day of class, they were like, oh, yeah, we're going to do it today. You got to take the drug test now, otherwise you can't get your report card. So, some of us were like, oh, okay. Some of us were like, oh, fuck. So from what I heard, I wasn't there. This is all word of mouth. Timmy, of course, was one of the guys going, oh, fuck. So what he had to do is he wanted to get somebody to piss for him.
Yeah.
So he went to his car and tried to find like something to pee in, and he found like an empty sleeve of Ritz crackers. You ever seen like the little like
oh my
tan
God,
like sleeves?
yes.
So he actually convinced somebody to piss in the thing for him. So he had it like concealed in his jeans as they were waiting in line to go do the drug test. And I guess he lost his grip on it, and like it slipped out, and it like spilled in his pants. So it was like somebody else pissed himself. And of course he didn't pass because then he had
crinkling.
Yeah, all for nothing. I don't listen. I don't know if this is true. So again, take it with a grain of salt.
I've heard some crazy stories where stoners try to do some crap like that.
Yeah,
So
it's just a funny story. It could be a total lie. It's just funny.
It's a good story.
Okay, so. Sorry, we got sidetracked there. So we're at Bonnie Bray.
Yeah, so I was just describing group home. So so that one group home got kicked out of Bridgewater, get sent to Baskin Ridge.
So how long were you there for at Baskin Ridge?
I was already in the group home for a year before that. Like I said, people don't even last in group homes for a year. So I watched many people come in and out. Because I was also in a group home for the next 2 years.
Jesus.
In Baskin Ridge. My sophomore year. Me and my one. So in the group home, I got really close to, he's a brother to me, Ryan, this guy named Ryan. We eventually both started, you have to ask for permission whenever you leave this place in 24 hours in advance. You have to write a petition, say, okay, I'm going to go do this in 24 hours. And they say yes or no. And so we had a friend in the group home named Justin. We call him Subi. So Subi starts dating this girl in the high school named Kayla. Us three are like the only people in the group home that are allowed to go to Ridge High School. I think there might have been one other, but us three pretty much stuck together. So he meets this girl named Kayla. He starts seeing Kayla. Me and Ryan start writing petitions with Justin to go to Kayla's house all the time because she lives right in this big community development that's behind the group home if you hop a couple fences. So
okay.
And back in that time, you're skateboarding all the time, walking all the time. So that was nothing.
We all did that stuff.
Yeah.
You'd have to be like one house that you would go to constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we would just go there all the time. Eventually, Subi and Kayla break up, but me and Ryan keep going there. They had a computer. I was always on the computer, and Ryan was always eating their food, and we were just hanging out with Kayla. And Kayla had a mom, a single mother, named Rosie, and the group home and Rosie were talking, and Rosie's like, I think that I want to try to get these boys out of this group home because they're never going to be able to leave, me and Ryan. Mm-hmm. Ryan had parents, but I don't know what the situation was with that because he also had brothers and stuff like that who I eventually meet, great people. But for some reason, he couldn't go he had a situation where he couldn't go live at home. So,
just him?
Yeah, just him. He also didn't live with his brother. His brother was also already like older and out of independent living. Independent living is a thing when you're over 18 and you're still in group homes.
Oh, so wait, how old are you guys at this time?
Sophomore year.
Okay.
So, what is that? 14?
Yeah,
15.
Well, 15. I guess 15 would be freshman year.
I think freshman's 13, 14.
No, it's got to be older. Because I turned 18 senior year. So 18 senior, 17 junior, 16 sophomore, 15 freshman.
Yeah, and my birthday, and so I turned that age, so I was 14. So then 15.
Okay.
15 turning 16, then it would be, right?
I'm not trying to tell you your life
definitely
story.
Tell me. I don't got the math. I just got
Yeah, I don't have the math.
the time period.
I'm a letters guy, not a numbers guy.
I also remember my age and my birthday and everything was a weird thing in school. I was always like young, very young.
Yeah, there was always the kids that were like a
Yeah.
little older in the group
yeah.
in the grade.
And I think something got lost in translation through my years of foster care where I was totally held back one year, but then fast forward in life and I was totally young for my age of grade. I mean, young for my grade. So somewhere they fixed it.
They made up for it somewhere.
Yeah, which I didn't complain. I was like, sure, get me out of this, you know. But anyway, so
Rosie.
Rosie, Kayla, me, Ryan. Rosie's talking to a counselor, the main like superintendent counselor guy who used to work for Catholic Charities Group Home, who no longer works there, somehow becomes a DYFS worker. And now he's like, oh, so here's something I need to tell you guys. The crazy thing growing up with DYFS workers, my DYFS workers often didn't ever do anything, sometimes didn't even speak English, and never did their work. Like, so that's why you just like are constantly moving family to family. My stuff would always get, so also as I'm getting kicked out family from family through all these years and group homes, stuff like that, I never kept anything.
Nothing.
You get taken. Remember all these times I've been taken from this house, spur of the moment. Taken from this house, spur of the moment. You don't get that stuff. They tell you you're eventually going to get that stuff, and one day you get like a CD or something stupid. Even though I have talked to past foster families, the Spychowskis, the only one I still keep in contact with, and they were like, yeah, we sent them a bunch of stuff. You didn't get it? That's kind of messed up. Pretty sure they eventually like even go and try to sue DYFS for everything that he did. Didn't win. Cost them tons of money, but yeah, so that's worth mentioning. The counselors don't do their work, and I never kept anything in my life. I was always up, moving, and had very little to me.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
So anyway, now this guy who used to run
I left my collection of used bandages at the Spykowski's house.
so many wrestling figures, so many Pokemon cards. Just think of all the people that still have those Pokemon cards that they used to have.
We have an entire box of new ones.
New ones,
They
yeah.
still make them.
Yeah, I know. I've seen them. They look crazy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But all the things I could have once ever kept, I just kept moving on. But anyway, so no, ask questions.
Oh, I mean, I can't imagine what that does to a young man's psyche. You know what I mean? I mean, now clearly you're a very well-adjusted guy. You're doing good for yourself. You're in a healthy relationship. Like, how do you get to where you are now from this? Because you would think that people going through the system in that way and just kind of getting like essentially chewed up and spit out over all these years of your entire childhood, like you would think you would be a lot more fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there'd be some some people who would look at you singing in a metal band and say, "Oh, he's real fucked up."
Yeah,
but
totally.
I mean, look, I'm sitting across from you right now. You seem like you're a good, like you're a healthy dude.
I think everything I went through definitely changed me. Just so much as it sculpted and molded me. I would say in this scenario where I constantly don't get to keep everything when I move house from house, we're going to eventually get to the point where I'm living in a car and own like two things. And I lived that way for a long period of time in my life. And that's okay with me. I was so okay with constantly leaving up and leaving places and having nothing.
You just never build attachments to anything.
Yeah. So we're going to get there. I skimmed the beginning years because I just was in a bunch of foster families,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's the later years
like you do,
that it gets crazier. Because then you can start to see that, DYFS was fucking screwed up. All right. So,
now, do you think that that's like an indictment of DYFS as a whole, or just like there's a lot of people that are maybe
I think
they're overworked or overloaded? Like, what do you think?
DIFUS as a whole. Some of these people should have never been counselors, and it's DIFUS as a whole. There's been so many lawsuits against DIFUS for doing things like I've mentioned before, where they leave out information about kids that they're placing in the homes that need special needs, stuff like that. It's funny. Here's another thing. There was a time in my file that, when you're younger and my one brother Jared, back to him, he showed me wrestling, and when I was younger in the 90s, wrestling was the hypest thing. I love Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid. I think he liked Bret Hart or something like that. I started loving wrestling, so we would wrestle on freaking couches and trampolines and all that stuff. One day I'm wrestling, and the freaking foster parents put in my log that I was pinning someone down, and the way it was written in my log was like weird.
We were wrestling. We were playing like professional wrestling,
and I'm just like, what is wrong with people, man? But so yeah, like I said, they just like, they kept track of everything is what I'm going on with that. But then when you go to the next family, they black out the important things, like a kid that defecates himself all the times and has special needs,
Yeah.
And then you get placed and you don't know that this kid is too much for you. So guy who runs group home Catholic Charities, he's like, this boy doesn't stand a chance, and we need someone to help him. I'm going to become his counselor, like my DIFUS, like day-to-day counselor. Ryan's one at the time doesn't speak English. So back to that, doesn't speak English, can't write the paperwork. So Don, my counselor at the time, is like, I'm going to fill out Ryan's paperwork for him too. We're going to get him into Rosie's house. Rosie's going to get a check of her own. These two boys are going to get checks of their own. We're going to sign this deal. I'm in sophomore year, so I'm going to be living there junior year, senior year. I got this special deal coming. I get to be signed on to DIFUS to 21 years old. There's going to be money in the bank. There's going to be checks sent to me, whole nine. Like, great deal. And we are all going to live in this house in Baskin Ridge. Everything's going to go great. I move into the family first. Don works on the paperwork. In a month or so, we get Ryan in there. We're all living there. We start getting our checks. I don't have a bank account. Ryan doesn't have a bank account. We have Rosie sign our checks. Okay, everything's good. She's giving us the money. She gets her money. We get our money. Signed on to 21. Great deal. We go on, I think junior year, all right, we live that life. Life is good. I'm not in a group home anymore. I don't have to write petitions to go out and hang out with friends. I don't have to live in rooms with other people who act out on purpose, and then, you get brought into the negativity of that. Going back to group homes. The group homes are like kind of built to knock you down. They like want to punish you. So you have levels in group homes that you write petitions for. Like, I was a good boy for 2 weeks. Let me be on this level called growth where I can write petitions to go out. And, I've been on growth for this many weeks. I should be able to go on weekend trips and yada, yada, yada. But since you get privileges, they try to get you knocked down back to that focus level or whatever.
Well, it seems to be like the group home, like you were not the intended, what's the word I'm looking for?
Demographic?
Demographic for the group home.
So like the beginning, I felt it for the tricks, but eventually it gets to the point where I was in such a higher level because I would say not a positive thing I learned in my life of group homeness, but I learned.
You could say a positive thing. You could.
No, I'm saying one of the traits that I learned in a group home that was not the most positive thing is that I learned to manipulate the staff. I knew like when there were so in group homes, you're not allowed to have CDs. You're not allowed to have all these things are called contraband if you get caught with cigarettes or CDs or anything.
CDs are contraband?
Yeah, I think the big reason with that is I was the minority there. There wasn't many white kids in group homes. Mm-hmm. It was often black kids from gangs in group homes, or at least in mine. And they listened to very aggressive rap music, and that was totally 100% why we weren't allowed to have CDs, because it wasn't because I was listening to Blink 182 or something like that.
You're not listening to Burl Ives' greatest hits.
Yeah. But they couldn't take away one thing without taking away everything.
I have to keep it even across the board.
So they would do room searches like that. I would help them search my room, silly things like that. But, you know, I wasn't the one acting out having to get slammed down to the ground. You know, eventually I make friends with the group home counselors, and I can like sneak out in the middle of the night and hang out with some that are there late at night and eat the extra snacks and, you know, whatever. But whatever. So I'm back. Let's go back to Rosie's house.
Okay.
Some things I didn't get to say about the group homes. But so I'm at Rosie's house, lived there for junior year. Now senior year is when things start to get a little iffy living there, because she's getting checks. She's also getting checks from, I find out, from her biological mom who lives out of state. So someone's paying for the rent here. Dyfus is paying for the rent here. And she starts saying to me and Ryan, all right, if you want to borrow the car, she'll charge us. And if you want to get this food and borrow money that you don't have, she'll charge us. And Ryan at the time, he was willing. He's like, okay, take whatever money that I owe you from this out of my check, because remember, she's the one signing our names. And I was like, man, fuck driving a car. I'm skateboarding, or Ryan's gonna drive, or I'm not gonna need to take any money, because honestly, I'm used to having no money. I used to save up money in the group home days. They'd give you like an $8 allowance. I would walk to the mall. I would buy mall chicken, which is teriyaki chicken.
Oh yeah,
that was my dream right there.
Sarku, Japan.
Yeah. And if it wasn't that, I was buying like cookie dough ice cream. That was my life. So I was used to no money. I didn't care. But what I did care about was I was finally getting some money, and she's now starting to she was already signing my checks, but she was starting to like trying to get the money from us. And I'd be like, nah, just give me my check,
Trying to come up with like little fees and stuff.
Yes. Then she starts not giving me my money. She says, oh, I put it out on the table. If it disappeared, I don't know what happened to it. So, where this story goes is I tell Dyfus. Dyfus confronts her. She gets upset, but it's never going to happen again. So, it's getting towards the end of senior year, and pretty much, long story short, it happens again. And I have to tell Dyfus that this woman is like saying that she's putting my money out and she's stealing money from me because I won't take the fees. Like, yeah, I get it. I eat food and stuff like that. I'm eating all the Hot Pockets you buy us, and you're like, I have to. Oh, here was the other thing. It got to the point where it was Cinderella story. Like, they did such a good service for me and took me in and stuff like that. But it gets to the point where I'm cleaning up after everybody, dishes, everything. I'm like, I got to the point where I'm scrubbing with a toothbrush kind of thing. Like, that was my life there. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I'm not here to clean up after everybody's dishes. I get that I eat like Hot Pockets and stuff, and you gotta replenish this food, but like,
that's why you're
checks.
Getting your own check.
Yeah, you're getting your checks. And I know that Ryan's for some reason paying you his, but I want to save up my own money, And what ends up happening is a huge blowout. Like, she's like, you can't live here anymore because you ratted me out. And I mean, obviously not those words. And Dyfus then comes at me and is like, you're no longer signed on to 21 and you're going to be homeless at the end of this, which is super fucked up. That's when it's just like, what the fuck? Like I said, Dyfus has been sued for many things and stuff like that. But like, I'm a kid. I didn't even know I even stood a chance back then. But I'm just like, and I said they tried to like get you to not age out, but here I am. I'm not even 18 yet. I'm in my senior year, gonna be 18, and I'm gonna age out. And it's because this woman is stealing money from me, and I'm voicing that my money's being stolen. Like, you're getting money, we're all getting money. Just let me have my little cut of money, Like, I would like to save up for a car or whatever, And luckily, instant karma. I don't even know how the hell this happens, but it kind of also shows that there was a money thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, the landlord at Society Hill says that she has to be out by summer and that she can't live here anymore. So she tells me the day before, I can't live here anymore, and the next day, she can't live here anymore.
Like the literal next day.
I know. That's why I keep this story, because it's kind of fucking crazy.
Well, there you go. Karma's a bitch.
It literally is. And I remember there gets to the point where she actually moves out, and there's still like a week left to live in the house, and I just live there by myself in an empty house. Like, all right, here, let's get it. Here comes life. I don't even own a car yet. I don't have a job yet, and I'm just about to graduate high school.
Jesus Christ. All right, so what do you do?
What do? I immediately start working at Coconuts FYE at the Bridgewater Circle.
Here we go. Now we're getting into the territory where I'm a little more familiar with.
I make some money after busting my ass. I buy a car. I buy a car for $500 in a food store parking lot, and I start living in a car. I'm dating a girl at a time. Her family helped me like kind of find where the car was. So I mean, sometimes I would crash there, but most of the time I was just living in a car. And like I said, at this point, I'm used to not having much. And this is why I eventually become so good at touring, is because I started out living in a car.
Well, so like when you turned 18, like, and you're already in the car at this point?
Yes, I'm in the car. I graduate high school and I'm in the car. You know, there's people telling me, hey, maybe you want to go and join the Army. That's the first thing. They want me to join the Army or National Guard, whatever. I'm sure that's the right answer for some people, but there's no fucking chance that I was going to do that. No, it wasn't for me. I have been in so many, like, locked up things that, So then the next thing is...
Too much routine.
Let's bring you to independent living, which I told you Ryan's brother was in a thing like that. And then I got to see... I actually went and checked out that exact place because it was in, like, Somerville, I believe. And you got a little more freedoms, but still at the end of the day, you're in a group. You're, like, have to come back to this many people living here home and ask for permission to leave and write
Fill out
petitions
forms and shit. Yeah,
you could get in trouble, and you got other obligations that are just not the real world right now.
Now you finally have a taste of real freedom.
Yeah, and at that point, I know one of the big things growing up in foster care and all that jazz, the group homes, is you hear as kids start to get closer to 18, they're like, when I turn 18, I can't wait to get out of here. So I probably didn't say it as much as some of the people that I've heard, but I know that I felt it deep inside that I was not going to put myself in the position where I'm locked into anything.
Yeah, understandable after all that time.
And DIFUS just fucked me. Like, I was signed on to 21 constant checks, Social Security, Medicaid. Like, I was going to have everything paid for. Like, I mean, I'd have a job and stuff like that, but like all the things that are important, like everybody's on their parents' insurance. I don't have that. And like for medical. And then, you know, I had medical then, you know, and then they just take that away. They take away everything. And the one thing is when you turn 18 and you have to pay for everything yourself, car insurance was like $200 a month when you have no one to co-sign and no parent to be under. Getting a cell phone plan, I tried to get Verizon. They're like $400 just to start up. Nope, I've been T-Mobile since the day I could get a phone because they were the only ones at the time. It might be different now because they're big as hell, but at the time they were just starting out. They didn't need me to drop $400 deposit, you know? But yeah, so I'm living in a car. I sleep through winters. There's times in my life where people are knocking on the door because they think that the fumes are in the car and I'm killing myself. Like, that's how crazy that living in a car gets.
How long were you living in the car?
Like a year, and then I go back in parts of the story. Like, I lived there for like a year. Eventually I meet up again with Ryan, my brother, because he'll always be my brother, but he was my brother in the Rosie situation, and we did the group home stuff together. We even had a band together. In the group home days, we started a band together, my first band ever. So I got a guitar, he got the drums. I remember he started out banging on tables, and we moved up from there. But yeah, anyway, so we eventually move out to a place in Plainfield that's like in the process of being renovated. It's not even like insulated. There's no trim work or anything like that, but they let us move into this thing. There's like 2, 4, 6, 7 or 8 of us in this house, and I get to be part of it. I get to live there for a bit, to the point where, I mean, that house, people were breaking in constantly. It was crazy, man. It was right outside of like a whorehouse. Like, me just walking on the streets was not a good time. I was constantly like approached, and I was even robbed out there. People would even hop in my vehicle out there.
Just, you look at a place.
Yeah, definitely. And I eventually get given a car that says Yayo on the back of it. That was not a good thing for that too. You know,
Well,
they put
I mean,
the AO sticker.
Side
on it.
note, that is how you ended up getting your nickname.
Yes, because I was always living in the hood, so I get the nickname. But
Tony
then
Yayo.
my one friend who does like custom signs and stuff, he got it on the back of my car. So now
Shout
I'm
out
out
to,
there. I got
Chachi.
the crackheads coming up to my car, sucking on lollipops with no teeth, like, can I get a quarter for Lucy? Like, I'm like, this is my house. I'm really not trying to pick you up here.
You're on my front step right now, motherfucker.
Yeah, dude. Dude, I remember one time in front of my house, I watched this dude get his arm ripped off his socket. Like, this Spanish guy got his arm ripped off his socket.
Like off?
Like,
Or
hanging
like
there.
pulled out
like,
of the socket.
Yeah,
Got it.
because they would wait for you to come home from work and rob you because they knew you had cash because he was definitely an illegal or something like that. It was just wild out there. But, I mean, it was great. I'm pretty sure my rent at the time was like $200 because we had so many people living in this big house that was unfinished. But eventually they need to move to a better place. And in that place, less people can fit. I stayed there for like a couple months to the point where they were like, you know, there's nowhere for you to stay here. And I was like, I know, I get it. And I went back to living in a car. And, yeah. Eventually, I work really hard. And I don't have to live in a car anymore, you know? I work really hard and I get a house. But it's funny. I get a house. And then I'm in a band, and my band takes off, and once again, I'm back to living in a van. And
Well, you're skipping over a bunch of stuff in between right now.
yeah,
So you're in the car. So you're in the car. Then you're in the house in Plainfield. Back in the car.
yeah.
Now, do you remember like how long it was until you met Drew for the first time?
I was living in a car when I met Drew. That period of time was before the Plainfield house. I start living in Plainfield while I'm in Arms Like These because I remember I started going to band practice from Plainfield, driving through Denellen and stuff like that. So I was living. I met you guys like I was living back there for months, maybe a year, bro. It was, and I didn't always sleep. I had to switch up my places because cops. So it's funny. Back to touring is you're allowed to like park in Walmarts and places out of state and no one knocks on your door and bothers you. But in New Jersey, you can't sleep anywhere in your vehicle. They come at you. They don't think it's okay. So there's plenty of times where cops are knocking on my door and I have to move. So I always kept it switching out, you know. And I remember there's a few times Drew would see me. I would sleep in the Toys R Us parking lot in the morning. And it would get so hot in my car that I'd open up the doors, but I'd be so tired from working late at night that I'd pass back out in my car and I'd be hanging out the door apparently, just sweating it. And Drew would see me going to work from the highway and look back and be like, I need to go see if Tony's alive. Like,
Well, I remember you stayed with him for a while. You were staying with Tim for a while.
Yeah, I mean, yes, exactly.
Different Tim, not the same Tim we were
Not
talking
the
about
same
before.
Tim.
This is
I
Tim.
mean-
Tim D. Tim D's been on the podcast. I think it was episode.
I stayed
20
with
something.
Drew for, I'm not quite sure how long, but for a little bit, some weeks, a month maybe. I don't know. He might know a little bit better. I mean, you got to understand when you're bouncing from place to place and living in a
It's a blur.
car, like it is a blur. Like the
Yeah.
time period's a blur. And I'm also working on this dream of being a musician because my whole life growing up, I thought that was why I had such a shitty life, is that like, this is a great story and I'm going to be making music for all the kids out there that feel what I feel. And that's why, like, I listened to music to get through what I got through, and now here I am, bro. I got the story, I got the lyrics, I got the passion, and I'm going to do this.
Well, I mean, now it is a great story, not in the sense where it is great, where it's like yay, but like great where it's kind
Inspiring.
It's a crazy story. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's pretty heartbreaking. Like it's pretty fucked up. But it is a great story in the sense in its magnitude, so to speak.
Absolutely. I try to put a positive spin on it.
No,
like
but
I
you
said,
have to.
You know,
what
definitely.
do you got to do? You got to sit about all the shitty things that happen, sit and think about all the shitty things that happen to you, and just let them completely bury you.
Yeah.
Like, no, you have to use that in some way. You have to turn it
Absolutely.
around.
Absolutely. And like I said, I mean, I met lots of kids that like never let go of that dream that the parents were going to come back into their life and save them. And I did. I was like, you know, my purpose in life is like, it was documented as a little kid that my first words were like "fee fallen." I was like in music. I liked Tom Petty. I liked all this stuff, and I'm like, with that story that I was told, and just the growing up writing lyrics to eventually teaching myself how to play instruments, I'm like, I gave my life meaning. I'm like, I will do anything to make that happen. I will live in a car. I will work at these cheap paying jobs or whatever I got to do to be in the music scene. And then I eventually meet Drew, and I definitely crashed at homies' houses. I crashed at Tim's for a bit. His family was very nice, let me stay there for a little bit, and same thing with Drew's family. But I mean, I thank you to everybody that ever let me crash at their place, but I know how like uncomfortable that's got to be a little bit for you guys too, and for me, man. Like, one of the things growing up without a family kind of makes it weird for me in the family environment. Like, I don't know how to really act and be a family.
You don't have a basis for like how to model
yeah.
behavior.
And there's definitely plenty and I've been broken and humbled. Like, you think living in a car, bro, I've been humbled. Anytime that like I could have gotten any arrogance, I get humbled. There's so many people in my life that I meet, and before they actually meet me as a person, they hear stories about me, and they think just because I was like some vocalist in a band and stuff like that, that and I'm homeless, that I must have chose this life. I must be a drug addict, which was the opposite. And I must be an asshole douchebag kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And really, I'm a hard worker, humble, nice guy that just tries to be friends with everyone. And that's always what ends up happening. I mean, it's not easy in the band scene, but it ends up happening. I meet these people and they're like, wow, you're nothing like what I thought and what I heard about you. And I don't know, man.
Well, I will say you are amazingly well adjusted, having gone through what you went through. Like, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Like, it's amazing you turned out as well as you did.
Absolutely. Another thing I want to say about not having parents is sometimes when I'm with friends and their parents, I either have the thing where I see like the parents and the kids always are fighting, and I'm like, man, how could you talk to your parents like that kind of thing? Or I'm like, man, it's great I don't have parents to have to deal with this all the time, because I know a lot of people that still live at home and fight with their parents, So
it's the same thing with, like,
there's blessings there for me that I see. I don't know.
It's like when you talk to like someone who's an only child, like, I wish I grew up with siblings. And then you talk to me, like, I have 6 sisters and I talk to one of them. Like, what do you? Mm-hmm. It's not all it's cracked up to be. So it's always a grass is greener situation. But I think to a certain extent, all of us kind of want what we don't have, what we're not used to. We like the thing that's different than what we're accustomed to. That's why you see guys with like blonde hair love exotic looking women, and those women like guys who don't look like the guys they grew up with. You know what I mean? We like things that are different from what we're used to, all of us. And I don't really know where I was going with that, but
so one thing I wanted to do is, the reason I ran through all that life and skipped some things is I just wanted to make sure that you guys kind of saw the timeline,
mm-hmm.
you especially. So now that we can kind of just bounce off of the things that happen, because you now kind of see the timeline. There's the time where I'm in foster care, time when I'm in group homes, time where I finally go back into foster care, get played, age out, DIFA screws me, live in a car while hustling. Lots of friends take me in here and there,
mm-hmm.
but ultimately I'm back in the car. There's even a time period where, like I said, I'm touring and I can't afford to be touring and living in New Jersey. So I get rid of my house that I worked hard for and live in a vehicle again. And then when my band flops, because they all want to do something else and not do music anymore, back to living in a car and having to create a whole new life again, where I become a general contractor and create a whole new me.
Well, that's what I want to get into. Is I want to kind of fast forward. Like, I know, like, anybody watch the show. Tony's been on twice before. We kind of got into this a little bit more, like the band story. So we were in a band together. Then you were in The Air I Breathe. You guys got signed. You went on tours all over the country. So now that band ends. Where are you now? Because this is now before you get into the line of work you're in now.
Yes, definitely. So when that band ends, I'm fucking heartbroken. Like, I worked so hard and we got so much success that came at us, but just not enough for some of the homies to stay. But we got things that we dreamt of. We sought out, and we were like, man, we want this label, and we want this management, and we want this booking agent. And somehow, without asking those people came to us. So I was literally brainwashed to be like, yo, like, we got it all.
Yeah.
So for it all to eventually
X
fall
factor.
through, yeah, we called it the trifecta because it was the 3 things we wanted, and we had it, and it just didn't work out. When that fell through, meanwhile, Tabe also has this kid that started The Air I Breathe that is suing us through this for like pennies because you can't get anything. So I'm talking to management, and they're like, listen, bro, you're the only one in The Air I Breathe right now because, you know, people trickled out. Eventually the news comes out that everyone's gone, but we went through tours losing one at a time. And it's just me. I see bands all the time where it's just one member. And for me personally, I was not going to be I'm the only guy in this band and I'm going to call it this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, lots of vocalists especially do that, but it just wasn't for me.
Axl Rose.
They do that, but it wasn't for me. And there was one perk to it. Get this dude from your past that's trying to sue The Air I Breathe out of it. That's something that a lot of people don't know that I'm saying right now. So that was one of the perks. I started a band called Burn to the Ground, and I'm like, this is what it's going to be. I'm going to make an EP with them. I'll probably re-sign to the things that I was signed to because they'll probably they'll get first dibs because I already didn't finish out my contract that I was signed to before. So they'll get first dibs, or I'll go to one that'll treat me better, you know? But I made a super group kind of per se with that because I toured the country and picked people.
Smart.
Thought it was smart, but what it ended up being was, in the real world, it's too hard to all live in different states because I had guys in Pittsburgh, Chicago. I was in New Jersey. Eventually, it was so difficult that I actually added someone from New Jersey just so I had one guy in New Jersey with me. But New Jersey's expensive. I need to find a better career. Burn It would make a little bit of money, you know, because we didn't have to pay out everybody like that was taking 10 to 15% out of everything, and even venues take merch cut, but whatever. So, you know, we would do tours, but although I wasn't starting over technically, it really felt like I was starting over because I had to constantly enroll people into, this sounds exactly like The Air I Breathe, but it's a new name kind of thing. And Facebook at this point just literally just sticks it to every musician. The Air I Breathe has had at this point over 100,000 people on our page. I can't post a status without paying $1,000 if I want people to see it. If I post it without that, a couple people see it.
It gets buried in the algorithm.
Oh yeah, just because it's a page and not a person, they were just like not about it. And then as a person, I'd post things, but not everyone follows just band members. Some people follow bands, you know, but whatever. So that was, you know, I did Burn It for a little bit. I did some tours. It was awesome. But eventually I get into this new art of being like the front man of remodeling houses and having my electrician guitar player and my plumber drummer. And
how did you get into that?
Dude, is
that something you had experience in from somewhere along the way?
So what happens is, while I'm signed, oh my God, such an important part of my story that I skipped over.
I knew I was missing something.
This family, while I'm living homeless, reaches out to me, and they live in Flemington, and they go to adopt that boy that I once lived with who was defecating himself.
Okay. Good for him.
And they knew that I once lived with him. They reached out to me. They're like, hey, so you're someone from his past. We're trying to get people from his past and make this like thing more comfortable for him. But, you know, we're working really hard. And they take me out to dinner. I established a relationship with them. And we eventually try to make this process of them getting him comfortable. But what ends up happening with that is they hid so much information about the kid from that family, that he comes in and he's just like an older version of
the same
of a
problems.
messed up, and he's living this like, I'm gonna be 18 soon, like fuck everyone in the world. Like And I'm like, man, this dude needs to be humbled and be on the road, on the street like me, like when I turned 18, because like that'll really make you not think like fuck everyone. But I remember he would just they caught him secretly having like knives and stuff on him and just being like messed up. And they were best friends with someone that was in DIFUS, and they were like, yeah, this kid's been in a lot of homes, but they've been hiding out information. They found out through that the information that they got about him was blacked out and wrong and all that jazz. But what I did learn about at the time was they were putting him through a special process, because now this is 4 years maybe so later that he's gonna age out, where they're getting sued so much about wrongfully treating foster kids that they have this new thing where they put kids that are about to age out, they have them in a speed dating like foster care system where you go from family to family and see if you click with one of them. Isn't that freaking wild?
I mean, I'm just seeing like some version of that scene from 40-Year-Old Virgin in my head.
And
Jesus
but like
Christ.
with two parents and you're a kid, and like I never had to go through that. I can't imagine how wild that is.
But like, so kind of guide me through this. You're now you're over 18. Like you've been in the bands. You know, like this is after The Air I Breathe, you know, is finished. Yeah. What is going through your head? I gotta know. Like, where are you mentally?
I'm lost. And when I had to finally come to terms with that, I'm not gonna be a musician. When that's the one thing I thought was the answer to my life. Like I literally just told myself in my mind that like I said, there were kids out there that thought the parents are gonna save them one day. Well, in my mind, no parents. Like I'm gonna be this rock star that gets to share his story, and that's the only thing. And when I finally come to terms with the fact that these are my last couple tours and I'm playing a little bit of The Air I Breathe and a little bit of Burn It, and I'm starting to do houses, which I learned from the family that was going to adopt that kid, but they end up not adopting him. They had a car place, and I learned how to paint cars, and then I learned how to paint houses when I leave the painting the cars, and then I start dabbling with, I'm like, I need to create a new future. I find some guy, I tell him I know how to paint.
Hey, I hear you know how to paint houses.
I meet him in a Home Depot parking lot, and we go from there. He teaches me how to sheetrock, and I eventually learn tile, and then eventually I start. I leave him.
Paid off.
I was an apprentice. I made nothing. Luckily, I was finally living somewhere a little cheaper with a homie, and I eventually move out. Save up money, move out, because my homie eventually gets really abusive. I was living in this verbally abusive house where he threatened to kick me out all the time. So I'm like, I can't live like this anymore. I got to go get my own place. I can't do the roommate thing. I get a freaking house that was a flip, completely renovated to rent. And next thing you know, I complain about something. They come in and they're like, you're a contractor. Well, come work for us. I start working for them. I then take over the head guy's job, and then I start running the jobs. And then I'm like, I'm finding some art that I like to do. It's not music. It's just as stressful, but, it's
a little more labor intensive.
Yeah, it's more physical. But that was the one thing I was missing out. Once I stopped touring, bro, me live. I didn't pick metal. Metal picked me. New Jersey loved metal. I was not a metal kid.
Yeah.
I came
You
from
weren't when
punk
we met
rock.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just knew how to scream, and I only knew how to scream because scene music had a little bit of screaming in it.
It's kind of like, it's cool to do at parties.
Yeah, you guys were the first band where I screamed exclusively, like only screamed. So metal picked me, and then when it took off, I'm like, all I ever wanted to do was be a signed musician. So if people like metal, and I hated metal in high school, I mean, sorry, but I was a punk rock kid.
That's fair.
You were one or the other. And I mean, now I appreciate
Don't
metal.
feel bad. I grew up listening to like Marvin Gaye when I was with my mom, and like fucking Kenny G with my dad. Like, trust me, metal was not what I was raised into.
No, my metal fans, when they listen to this, I don't want them to think I don't like metal. I'm just saying I just wasn't originally into metal.
No,
you guys showed
fine.
me As I Lay Dying and stuff like that,
Yeah, look, when I joined that band, that was
Yeah.
how I really got thrust into metal myself. I liked a
and
couple
you look
things.
like a natural.
I liked a couple things, but I wasn't part of that world. I still never really felt like I was part of that world. I always kind of felt like, those guys, they look the part, and I'm just kind of gonna hold down the low end over here, you know. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe everybody feels like that, but I definitely.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, honestly, my whole life, I just always feel out of place. But so I just try to figure it out.
But look at you now. Like, you know, you have a house now.
No, I still rent.
Oh, okay.
But I'm saving because I mean that's the thing with New Jersey. I mean I'm putting it away, but you gotta.
No, New Jersey's particularly tough to buy.
And when I get my own house, I'll be able to completely renovate it myself.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, you're in a committed relationship.
Yep.
You're a healthy. You've been with her for how long now?
Over 2 years.
Yeah, I mean that's a good run.
Absolutely.
I mean, before I met my wife, that was longer than any relationship I ever had.
Absolutely.
But it's like you found a way to, I don't know, I mean, circumvent all this negativity in your life and not let it define you. You know what I mean? Like, so many people would be like, "Oh, this is like I came from a fucked up background and I'm fucked up, and that's just how it is."
Yeah.
Like, so many people just let that be who they are, and clearly that's not you. And I think that that's really, 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 really fucking commendable.
Thank you.
And I mean, I hope this doesn't sound condescending, but I'm proud, man. I'm proud of you that you're my friend and you did, you know, you came out amazing, man. Like, you're a good fucking dude. Like, what, I saw you at the soccer game.
Yeah.
You remember? My wife was like, "Oh, he seems nice." I'm like, you know what? Tony is a nice fucking guy. You know, that's not even his kid.
Yeah.
Like, he's just a nice dude.
That's how nice I am. No one gets it.
For the record, though, there was a like it was your girlfriend's
to my
nephew.
girlfriend. Yeah, definitely.
You're not just like watching kids soccer games randomly.
No.
That would be awkward.
Totally.
But no, I mean, I want to make sure you know I'm trying to give credit where credit's due.
I appreciate it. And
I mean,
there's a statistic
that's why you're here, bro.
there.
That's why you have an amazing story. Amazing, you know what I mean. But
I think it's amazing.
Definitely. No, it is amazing that
to come out on top.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Because there is a statistic of people that age out of DIFUS that there's like, it might be even 99%. It's in the 90s that they either go to jail or they have some crazy heavy addiction and yada, yada, yada. I remember when I aged out, that was the big thing. And I was like, I'm not going to be that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know? So I am proud of that.
You should be.
You know, never went to jail or anything like that. And everything from getting signed to now, I'm the go-to guy for these wealthy people to renovate homes, you know? And I'm young when it comes to that.
You are. That is true.
People that are almost twice my age constantly. Mm-hmm. And it's awesome. But I have to work extra hard so that they see. And then they see, well, my God, this dude works way harder than me. And that was one of the reasons why I did what I had to do this week. Because it's just one more guy that I showed that I'm just not like the rest. And he saw that. And he's like, what's the deal with that? And he's like, and then he mentioned something about how he came from a big family. I was like, actually, I come from no family and yada, yada. And he's like, he looks at me and he goes, and that's why you work so freaking hard.
Yeah. You got something to prove.
Everything I've gotten. Yeah. I had to work for it.
Well, normally we do a couple segments on the show now that perhaps you may not be familiar with since the last time you've been here. But I started doing a couple segments. We're going to skip one for now. But there's one I don't want to skip. It's called Humble Pie. This is like the dessert after we had the main course now. Now, Humble Pie, we talk about embarrassing stories from our life. Like things that humbled us. Now, you spoke generally about this. Stories like, just, it could be something dumb. It could be something serious that maybe you're not proud of that you learned from. You know, anything like that from the course of your life. So, what I'm going to do, now I actually had to write up a list of stories like this because I always share one on every episode, so I don't want to put too much pressure on the guest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know.
This is exciting.
It is exciting.
Cool.
And, clearly there's no shortage of embarrassing stories from my life. So I'm going to tell one. This is like a kind of a dumb one, but it is embarrassing. And I want to say I learned a lesson, but it's not the last time that this has happened to me. So clearly I didn't learn it yet. So, you remember George, our friend George.
Yep.
So his now wife, Megan, shout out to George and Megan.
Yep.
At the time, her sister was dating this guy. So they were having a little. It was way out in like Flagtown, like past Flemington, which is like the boonies.
Yeah.
For anybody not familiar with New Jersey, and he was having a little. Just decided, hey, I'll have some people over the house tonight, And I really hadn't smoked weed many times in my life before this, and I really can't point to a single incident where I had a good experience. But for whatever reason, I decided, hey, you know what? They're passing around the joint. I'll partake in a little puff pass. So I hit it, coughed quite a bit, And they said, oh, you did a good job. You hit it hard. I was like, did I? I did good? Yeah. So I got like super high. At the time, this is right before you joined the band, actually. This is the same year, I think, but it's earlier because Pete was still the singer at the time. But the song My Love by Justin Timberlake had, like, it just, like, started blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember me and Drew were standing in the kitchen, and I opened up there was like a full-size bag of Doritos, and I'm sitting there, we're just bullshitting, hanging under the counter, we're eating Doritos, I hear this song come on, and then we're like metal kids at the time, I'm like, yo, what the fuck is this? Like, this is the best song I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, forget everything else. Nothing else matters. This song is the most amazing thing I've ever heard. And he was like, all right, dude, relax.
Settle down.
And at the time, in my head, I was thinking, no, I'm being honest. Like, this is serious. Not thinking, that stereotypical people, oh, they'll make your music sound great if you smoke weed. But either way, so I got really high. I'm standing there, I'm, enjoying the song. I just opened this bag of Doritos. I got food. I'm good to go. And the song ends, and I'm like, oh, we ran out of Doritos already? It was a full-size bag. I ate the whole thing. And I don't know. I mean, surely a couple songs had to go by at that time. But, so I ate the whole bag. It was really high. Decided to, go back to drinking beer, which you never do. So I started drinking beer, got sick, and ended up puking. But I had eaten so many Doritos at the time that it was just like a Dorito paste coming up. It wasn't like liquid,
God.
And it hurt. It was... Imagine throwing up paste, and with little shards of Dorito in there. So I felt pretty bad about that, and I ended up laying on the living room floor, kind of snuggling the coffee table. And then of course this is a time when this kid's parents come home. Yo, what's up with this guy? Oh, he's fine. Man. He's just tired. But yeah, I don't have good experiences with weed. More often than not, I end up making an ass of myself. And that's another example of why I shouldn't smoke weed, as much as I want to. So, anything in particular that comes to mind?
Bro, I just gave you a whole hour of humble
I know,
pie,
it's almost
brother.
not fair.
I can't think of anything funny at the moment, but it's just I just remember every time, getting put into group homes, cooking for kids every day, all the way to living in a car for years at a time, I was humbled every chapter of my life, and that's kind of the place I'm at right now. I'm trying to think of a funny story, but I've just been skimming my life during this, thinking of all the craziness that I had to deal with.
No, I think that's fair. I think your whole story kind of was enough humble pie for one night.
Yeah. But
bro, honestly, I can't say enough.
I wish I could say a joke, bro. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. We got hours worth of other funny stuff to talk, that you guys can listen to. But like I was saying, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here and tell your story and be open and honest about all this crazy shit that you went through, that that was your life. And it's really a testament to the type of person you are and what you're made of, that you were able to come out on top of that and be better than all those negative things that happened.
Absolutely.
So I take my hat off to you.
Thank you.
Endless credit I give to you, buddy, and you're a good screamer too.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, do you anything you want to shout out? As far as stuff that you got to promote before we get out of here.
Nah, not right now. I'm just working hard, trying to build a new future.
Start flipping houses. Hire my man.
Yeah. If you live in the tri-state area or New Jersey in particular, hit up your boy. The skills are there. I can make it happen. But I'm just living that life, bro. It's a journey.
It's working, man.
I definitely didn't know I'd be here,
Hey, but you are. And you know what? You're right where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely,
proud of you,
brother. Thank
Love
you so
man.
much. Thank you.
So, guys, thanks for viewing, for listening. If you're still here at this point, you know where to find us already. APodAmongstMen, Gmail for any long-form questions or comments. If you want to find us on Instagram, that's where I do most of my action. APodAmongstMen on Instagram and Twitter. And for the podcast, you guys are already listening or watching, so you know where to find it. The full video's on YouTube. If you want to listen to it, it's on every podcast platform. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio. Wherever you get your podcasts, we will be there. And, just make sure you tune in every Thursday.
I got one more thing to say.
Hit me.
I tried to get on Oprah. She just wasn't having it. I started writing the story. I'm not much of a writer when it comes to stories. I'm like, I had to get the talk text, back when that first came out. She just wasn't having it. But I will say, if you have a similar story to me, you grew up in foster care, group homes, or anything like that, definitely, if you want someone to talk to, just to share some stories with, you could reach out to me on Instagram. It's I am Tony Dugard, which is I am Tony, and then DOUGARD. I'm definitely up to share experiences, or maybe you are a caseworker, and maybe there's a place for me where I can come help out and talk to some kids or something like that. I'm also open to those kind of things.
There you go. Yeah, reach out to Tony.
Absolutely.
I'm going to do a lot more than I can do. I'm just some asshole here in the garage talking shit with my friends. So, again, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. Tony, thank you, sir. Great to have you again.
Always a pleasure.
And that's it. See you later. Peace.